So the first thing you're going to do to create a Common Core aligned assessment is go over to the testing menu and then click on create test. Then if this was an assessment that your whole department was giving, you could choose site test. If it's something you're just doing in your classroom, you do teacher test. This just kind of helps organize it in the huge testing bank in EADMS. Then you would choose your content area, target test level, then a description on your test. So this could just be Common Core State Standards, Unit 1. And then the short name is just another organizational tool. You have to put something in there. It won't let you proceed. And then if you are using the Common Core item bank, you want to choose the online only option. And the reason you're doing this is because there are some of the technology enhanced items that are not available on the fixed format paper form. So a lot of things on the SBAC require dragging and dropping, so that's why you would have to do the online only option. And then you would go down here and click on create test from an item bank. We do have the option of inputting keys in EADMS, and then in that situation you would have to print out the paper test, and then the students would just take it online, and that would eliminate all the scanning involved and the printing scan sheets. So for this purpose though, we're just going to click on create test from item bank, and then we'll go over here to content area. Now to get to the Common Core items, if you look at the English language arts and the math right here, these would be the current California standards, so what the CSTs measure. But if we want the Common Core items, we're going to go down here to Common Core State Standards, ELA or math, depending on your content area. I'm going to do ELA for right now. And then you would choose the item level. You do have the option of choosing, a difficulty level. I'm going to leave it at any for right now. And then this is a pretty neat filter. Let's say that you want to add a few constructed response items onto your test, so that would be a question where the student has to generate some kind of an answer. Selected response means that the answer is actually in front of the student and they have to choose it. So I want to look at what constructed response items are in the system. So I can click on that. I can filter by domain, strand, or standard. So I'm going to look through here, and when I look over at the item number, this would be the number of constructed response items that are in this standard. So you can see there are a decent number of questions for each standard. They are being added as we speak. So I'm just going to choose one. Then you can go through here. You'll see that a lot of the questions are pretty similar. And then when you find one you think is effective, you can just click on the little button. And you go all the way down to the bottom and click on Add Checked. And if we scroll up, you can see that now you have 2 items on your test. And let's say that I want to look at all the items for this particular standard. I'm going to go back and click on Selected Response. And now I go down and I can see that there's some more here. So I'll go ahead and add a couple. Go down and click on Add All Checked. So here's another question. I can see on this one there's actually 3 correct answers. So when it's highlighted in green right here, that's a correct answer. So I'm going to add this question. Here's another one that has multiple correct answers. Actually, a bunch in the standard do. So I'll go down and click on Add All Checked. And at this point, I've chosen the items that I want to have on my assessment, and now I'm going to go to step 2. So I'll just click right here. And this gives me an item summary. And I can move the questions around if I wanted to, but then I'll just go to save and finish. Okay. And at this point I need to finalize my test and it'll be ready to go. So I'll click on finalize. And now at this point, if I wanted to edit the test, add questions, remove questions, I would have to make a copy of it, which you can do. So I'll just click on OK. And now I need to add a test administration. So a test administration is the way that EADMS works is it allows you to administer the same test over time, so you can look at longitudinal data. So this should be some kind of a date. So for right now, I'm just going to put fall 2013. And the start date is just the first date that the test can be administered. The end date is the last date that it can be administered. And then I'm going to do, in this situation, I can do both. The questions that I chose for this particular test can be administered on paper. So at this point, you can choose both, but when you're selecting the items, I would do online only. Now, there's a bunch of different options that you can choose here. All of these I would leave how they are. I would click on, so I would leave all of these checked, and then since we do have some constructed response items, click on that. It gives you a couple options here. The one we want to choose would be the student enters the response. The other option would be something where the teacher would score it, outside of the test. Maybe if you were doing something on paper, you could have that option where you input just a score. So I think for the most part on these items, we would choose this one. Then you have a couple options here, and for the most part, you would either do none or score. None, when the student submits the test, it would just say, thank you very much, have a nice day. If you choose score, then it's going to say you got a 75% or a 95%. Summary and score would give the student feedback, so that would actually have the test content involved. So if you were doing something where you wanted them to have immediate feedback, where they saw what questions they got wrong, you could select summary and score. Now, even if you just do none or score, you would still have the option to go back into EADMS later on and share feedback with the student. There's a bunch of reports that allow you to do that. So for the most part, you'll probably want to do score, and that would help with test security. This option right here to use a password, this would require students to type in a password that you tell them during class. And if it's a secure test where you don't want them seeing the test ahead of time or accessing it outside of the testing environment, you definitely want to use this. And then you could do any kind of password. And then you're going to verbally tell that to the students. You might want to write it on the board when you're testing as well. Then the classroom, you can choose to have this test available to a certain group of students. So in this case, it would be the teacher's first period class. And then you click on add student group. So you might want to do that period by period. Just depends on who you're administering the test to. And then you'd hit save. And then at that point, you're all set. I'm going to go ahead and log off of EADMS so that you can see what the student would need to do to access the assessment. So at this point, you would bring your students into, actually we won't be bringing them into the computer lab because they have Chromebooks. So you would have them log into Google Chrome and just go to the EADMS website. And at this point, this screen would pop up. They would click on log into online testing. They would put in their student ID number. And so when the students get to this page, you can see there's a ton of tests right here. Now, a couple easy ways to find this. The tests are sorted by the test ID number. So my test is, okay, so you can see there's a long list of tests here. A couple ways to find your test easily. They are sorted by the test ID number. So if you have the test ID number, you can direct the kids to that. The newer test would be down at the bottom. You can also have students push down the control button and do Control F, and then they can search for it like that. But any rate, you would just have the students go down here and click on Begin Test. And then this would be the password that you created. So ours is largemouth bass. And that's the password that all students would have to type to get into the assessment. So this is somewhat similar to how the SBAC testing works. SBAC will automatically generate the user ID or test session ID password, and in this case, the teacher has to create it. So you click on Login, Begin Test, and now you can see that our questions are here. Student can move around from question to question. Here's a constructed response where they type in the answer. Then when they're done, they hit finish. Allows the student to review the answer. And then submit the test. And in this case, the only feedback that I chose was to show them the score. And that would be it.